I remember this one evening staring blankly at a page of names I was supposed to remember for a meeting. I repeated them over and over, but the moment I looked away, they were gone. It felt like my brain had betrayed me, and I could almost hear it whisper, "Not today." Maybe this sounds familiar to you. Walking into a room and forgetting why you came, struggling to recall a simple list, or even freezing when someone asks for your friend's birthday. That frustration, that tiny pinch of self-doubt, it sticks with you. But here's the thing. Remembering doesn't have to be a struggle. There are tricks, psychology-backed hacks that can turn your forgetful moments into supercharged recall. By the end of this video, you'll have simple, actionable memory tools that actually work. You'll start to notice your brain holding on to information in ways you never thought possible. Our brains weren't designed to remember everything. Working memory, the mental sticky note we use for short-term information, is extremely limited. George Miller's classic research suggests we can hold about 7 plus or minus 2 items at once. That's why trying to remember a 20-item grocery list without help feels impossible. Cognitive load plays a big role too. When our brains are juggling too many things, decisions, distractions, emotions, it struggles to encode new information. This is why multitasking often leaves us forgetting what we just read or heard. Long-term memory isn't much kinder if we don't encode information effectively. Without strong associations or repeated exposure, details fade. This is where mnemonics come in. They act as bridges, turning short-term overload into memorable, retrievable long-term knowledge. Essentially, they work with the brain, not against it, giving your memory the structure it naturally craves. I'll never forget the first time a memory trick actually worked for me. I was in high school, struggling to remember the order of operations in math, PEMDAS. I tried repeating it over and over, but it just didn't stick. Then a friend taught me a simple phrase: "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." Suddenly, the letters weren't just random. They had a story, a rhythm, a life of their own. I could recall them effortlessly, even under pressure during tests. That moment felt almost magical. I realized my brain wasn't broken. It just needed the right kind of cues. From frustration to excitement, I discovered that memory isn't about raw effort. It's about smart strategies. That one small trick opened my eyes to a whole world of memory hacks, and I've been exploring them ever since. Mnemonics are more than clever tricks. They're grounded in psychology. At their core, they work by creating strong associations, making information easier to encode and retrieve from long-term memory. There are several types you can use. Acronyms and acrostics turn a list into a simple word or sentence, like PEMDAS. Chunking breaks down complex information into manageable pieces, which reduces cognitive load and leverages our 7 plus or minus 2 working memory limit. Rhymes and songs exploit rhythm and melody, tapping into auditory memory. And the method of loci, or memory palace, uses spatial visualization to place information along familiar locations, making it easier to recall. Why do these work so well? Well, research shows that dual coding, combining verbal and visual cues, enhances memory retention. When you link something new to existing knowledge or a vivid mental image, your brain has multiple pathways to retrieve it. In essence, mnemonics transform abstract information into something concrete, structured, and emotionally engaging, which is exactly what your memory thrives on. I remember standing in my kitchen with a mental blank. I had a grocery list: milk, apples, bread, and eggs. Normally, I'd panic and start scribbling, but this time I decided to try a memory trick. I created a silly little story in my head. The milk was swimming in a pool of apples, while the bread was sunbathing on the edge, and the eggs were juggling themselves in the air. The image was ridiculous, but that's exactly why it worked. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see it clearly. By the time I walked into the store, I remembered everything effortlessly. No notes, no phone reminders, just a mental story that my brain couldn't forget. That day, I realized memory isn't about repetition alone. It's about making information vivid, emotional, and connected. Suddenly, grocery shopping felt like a fun mental exercise instead of a chore. Creating your own mnemonics is simpler than most people think. The first step is identifying the key information you want to remember. Is it a list, a sequence, or a set of concepts? Once you know the target, you can choose the right mnemonic style. Step 2, transform the information. Acronyms work well for sequences. Take the first letters and form a word or a phrase. Rhymes and songs are great for facts you need to recall in order. Chunking helps when the list is long, breaking it into smaller, manageable groups. And for complex or abstract material, the method of loci or memory palace lets you visualize each item along a familiar path. Step 3, make it vivid and emotional. Silly, unusual, or exaggerated images stick far better than neutral ones. Imagine a purple elephant juggling apples rather than just a plain apple. Your brain remembers the story, not the mundane item. Finally, practice retrieval. Test yourself repeatedly. The more you actively recall, the stronger the neural pathways become. With these steps, your memory goes from passive to actively engaged, turning tricky information into something unforgettable. I remember walking into a crowded party, instantly overwhelmed by a sea of faces. People were introducing themselves, and I could feel my mind going blank. Names slipped away the moment they were spoken. Then I tried something different. I pictured each person with a visual cue. A friend named Lily holding a giant lily flower, or Mark balancing a stack of marks on his head. As I repeated the association in my mind, the names started sticking. I even added a little interaction to the image. Lily waving, Mark tripping over a stack of marks. By the end of the night, I could recall almost every name effortlessly. I felt like unlocking a secret superpower. More than that, it changed how I interacted. Remembering names made conversations smoother, deeper, and more genuine. That night, I realized memory tricks aren't just about facts. They're about connection, presence, and confidence. The memory palace or method of loci is one of the most powerful mnemonic techniques. It works by placing information along a familiar spatial path, like rooms in your house or landmarks on your route to work. Each item becomes a vivid mental image tied to a specific location. Later, when you walk through that space in your mind, the items naturally come back to you. Studies, like McGuire et al. 2003, show that expert memory users, such as London taxi drivers, have significantly enlarged hippocampi, the brain region responsible for spatial memory, demonstrating how visualization and spatial encoding enhance recall. Chunking is equally effective, especially for complex information. Instead of remembering 20 separate items, group them into meaningful clusters. For example, a phone number is easier to recall as 555-321-789 than as a string of 10 digits. Chunking reduces cognitive load and allows working memory to handle more information efficiently. Combined, these techniques leverage both spatial and organizational memory, turning overwhelming data into manageable, retrievable units. With consistent practice, even seemingly impossible lists, sequences, or abstract facts become easy to remember. I remember sitting at my desk, staring at a pile of notes the night before a big exam. Normally, I'd panic, cramming blindly and hoping something would stick. But this time, I decided to try what I'd learned about mnemonics. I created acronyms for lists, chunked complex concepts into smaller groups, and even built a tiny memory palace in my mind for the dates and formulas I needed. Each time I rehearsed, the information felt alive, connected, and surprisingly easy to recall. The next day, walking into the exam, I felt calm. When the questions appeared, the answers came naturally. I didn't just remember them, I visualized the cues I'd practiced, and it all clicked. That moment taught me the real power of mnemonics. They don't just help you memorize, they give you confidence, turn anxiety into control, and make learning feel almost effortless. Building a strong memory isn't about cramming, it's about daily, consistent practice. Start small. Pick one mnemonic technique each day and apply it to something simple like a grocery list or a set of names. Use spaced repetition to reinforce what you learn. Revisiting information at increasing intervals strengthens neural connections and moves memories from short term to long term storage. Pair this with active recall, testing yourself instead of just reviewing, because retrieving information is far more effective than passive reading. Incorporate mnemonics into your routine naturally. Turn facts into short rhymes, silly images, or tiny stories. Even 5 to 10 minutes a day of deliberate practice can compound into significant improvements over time. Remember, your brain thrives on connection and meaning. The more you make information vivid, emotional, or structured, the easier it becomes to remember. Consistency and creativity are the real keys to mastering memory hacks. I think back to that awkward high school student who couldn't remember names or lists. Fast forward, and using mnemonics turned those moments of frustration into effortless recall. Each trick I learned became a tiny superpower, small, practical, and surprisingly fun. The takeaway is simple: memory isn't fixed. With the right strategies, acronyms, rhymes, chunking, and memory palaces, you can hack your brain and remember more than you ever thought possible. Start small. Pick one technique today and watch your confidence grow. Your memory is waiting for you to unlock it.